Transport and Environment, and now that Phil's here, we'll take it. Phil moved and Tim will second it, and I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye, those opposed say no. That's carried. And now we'll move on to item 9, the Canterbury Civil Defence Emergency Management Group's Capability Assessment Report, and invite Murray Sinclair to come to the table, and perhaps you'd like to run through that for us. Thanks, Murray.
Thank you. Presume the speaker's on, is it? This report is a report for the full Canterbury Civil Defence Group area, so it covers from Kaikoura right down to Waimate. Each of the TAs and emergency services are required to do a self-assessment covering the goals and the 2 enablers that are mentioned in the report. And then the Ministry take those results, along with the Canterbury Civil Defence Group office that's based in Chester Street, to come up with this finalised report. They then moderate the self-assessment scores to come up with the overall score. And I'd like to correct one error in my report to 3.9, where I'd made that the moderated score for the Canterbury Group in 2010 was 68.6. That was actually the group's self-assessment score. The moderated score was 60.6%. So there has been an improvement in the scoring of the whole Canterbury Group. From 2016, it's now gone up to 66.3%, which puts us in the advancing category. There is one higher level category that we can get into, which is the mature, but from a McDam point of view, we are in a very acceptable level, being in the advancing level. The report, as I mentioned, goes through the 4 goals, and those goals come out of the National Civil Defence Strategy. The first one being to increase community awareness, understanding, preparedness and participation in CDM, Civil Defence Emergency Management. The second one was to reduce the risks from hazards to New Zealand. The third goal is to enhance the capability to manage civil defence emergencies. And then the fourth one is to enhance our capability to recover from emergencies. They then put in 2 enablers, one around the governance and management arrangements, and then the second enabler is around organisational resilience to support effective crisis management. And that covers things like the business continuity and other resilience work that's been done as well. The report's pretty thorough as far as it goes through. It identifies under each of them the strengths for the Canterbury Group and the areas for improvement. And in the report I've put that our own self-assessment, which was Appendix B to the report, mirrors in many ways the same result as the overall Canterbury report does. For our goal 1 under increasing community awareness, we scored ourselves higher than the group average. We invest quite a bit in this area through staffing, and I think this is the other thing that the report does comment on, the different sizes of some of the councils. We've got a large team here by comparison to other Canterbury TAs. Some of the likes of Kaikoura, Waimate only have a part-time person, and they might only spend 1 day per week, if that, on their civil defence arrangements. But that's relative to the scale and population they've got. But we are reasonably well resourced for the civil defence activities in Christchurch. Now, I don't know whether you want to ask questions and go through page by page through the report or how you want to, but I'm happy to answer questions as we go through.
I've got a question.
Pauline.
Yeah, thank you, Murray. Welcome. I'm just wondering about civil defence training. How long does it take somebody to train to be capable of acting in an emergency in the civil defence?
It depends on what role. If we look at our emergency operations staff, that's probably, if you add it up, it's probably a full-on week's training. But the Civil Defence Act talks about suitably trained and competent staff. So it's that gaining that competency which is usually the issue, and that's done through the exercise where people have the opportunity to either go to another area where there's been an emergency, or for a lot of our staff, their competency came through the 2010-11 earthquakes particularly.
Yes, because what I'm basing my question on is after particularly the September earthquake, community board members particularly felt outside of the civil defence grouping. They sort of felt that they didn't have guidance on what to do, and a lot of them were just out there doing their own thing. But I'm of a view that it would be quite good to train elected members in civil defence because they know their communities really well. So what's your thought on that?
Oh, definitely. We can take through what we feel for is EOC1, Emergency Operations Centre, as an overview of how an Emergency Operations Centre works. That'd be a very good one for all board members to go through.
EOC1.
EOC1 we refer to it as. But it would also be worthwhile going through some of the welfare training, which is the key area for the wellbeing issues, which I suspect where the board's focus would want to be.
Yes.
And that would cover off the sort of work we're trying to engage now with the communities, with community response planning. So a lot of it's not just the response, but the preparation work. I've always said the investment we do in preparedness pays dividends through response and also in recovery. So we can run through any board member or do by boards or a collective train, and I'd imagine we could do that sort of over 2 or 3 evenings, a couple of hours per session, something like that.
That would be great.
Yep. Phil, Andrew, Yanni.
Thanks, Murray, and it's a good, clear report, and we take your point that it's an overview of Canterbury, and Christchurch fits into that. And just sort of following Pauline's question, I just wondered, like, in terms of that part, and I do note too, that there's, I think it's on page 19, there's clear reference to part of the reason perhaps there hasn't been more involvement is because of what's called region-wide fatigue as a consequence of 2010. So that's clear, and the report's clear too on areas that need improvement. So with the sort of the area of community response planning too, I'm just wondering if, following Pauline's question, if in the future that might be an area which in fact council could delegate to community boards as a clear delegation of responsibility as part of governance. Is that a possibility?
I think that'd be good. I mean, we've been to a couple of boards, well, most boards, on the work we're trying to do, engage with the communities. We work with the strengthening community teams who are based at the service centres, and the boards are engaging with the various community groups. So we're not trying to reinvent groups or networks.
Yeah.
We want to go in with the strengthening community teams, with the boards, and it'd be very good to have say about a 6-monthly report going to the boards or involvement and get boards on board when we are looking at working with the community groups to develop their own emergency plans.
Great. Thanks, Murray.
I should say note on that, one of the key things coming out of the February 2011 quakes was there were a number of community groups that self-started. Graceland and Church, for a good example, Littleton, with its time back in it. And what they didn't know was how to connect into civil defence. And that's been one of our learning points is I cover those 3 things. The community need to identify what is the community. That could be geographic, could be faith, could be ethnic. What resources do they have themselves? And then the key thing from their point of view is how do we communicate with each other in an emergency? And a lot of that's done, arrangements are done it has to be done pre-event.
Thanks, Murray.
Andrew, Yanni, then Jimmy.
Thank you, Murray. You've gone some way to answering the question I'm going to put in your response to the 2 previous questions. But yeah, I certainly wanted to focus on what I would term community-led civil defence. So a grassroots-up approach, a theory that the community knows itself better than anybody else knows that community, and where there's capability in that community, we need to harness that to get the best civil defence outcome, which is owned by that community. And you'll be certainly very aware of some of the early conversations that were had in Littleton, where there was definitely energy and capability. And there were some frustrations around that as well. I'm encouraged by some of the comments in the report, but I guess I was just looking for a level of confidence that we've really moved on in our thinking to a more grassroots approach from the point that we were at maybe in 2010, 2011, maybe even 2012.
We definitely moved on. I think there was more of a hierarchical structure before, so the community were part of that hierarchy. Turn that upside down, it's got to be the other way around. We should be there to support the community, not to tell the community how to do things. So that's where the changes come on now with the community response plans, that it's they know their community better. They know what resources they've got themselves. And an example of that, after the September 2010 earthquake, I went out to the Brooklands community to have a discussion with Mount Via, and I thought I was only going to our volunteers, but it turned out the full room of the whole community. And there was some criticism of us about resourcing, and they were on about generators. a woman down the back stood up and said, look, I belong to the Resident Association. If you'd asked me, I could have told you where the generators were in our community. So again, it's encouraging the communities themselves to talk to each other. And that's what we're trying to do with the community response planning, is get a cross-section of the community. And what we do rely on that basis of those emergency planning is having drivers, key leaders in the community take the lead from them. Because without those leaders, the plans will fall over. And that's why we don't want to really pick up what we might have done previously, so that we'll look after this. That we need to be working with the community such they take the ownership of the plan. As you say, Councillor Turner, they know their own community, their resources, and we just need to connect them with the networks within the wider community there.
Yanni?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this. I was just interested, is there kind of a paper that's looked at lessons learned from the earthquakes and the flooding, and then kind of ties into what the response was and what we could do to improve?
The Ministry took the lead on the review. You'll recall there was a review of the 2011 earthquake, and McDem took the lead on the corrective action plan there, and they categorised them into about 12, there were 102 recommendations. They've categorised them into about 12 areas. They have just signed off on those that they were completed last month.
But how do we know as a council the lessons learned from those earthquakes?
They're documented, but the question is, how do we put them into practice ourselves? Yeah. And that's what we're working through with the Canterbury group and ourselves, to identify those ones that are specifically relating to a local level. And a number of them are at the national level, which we don't have any control of. In one example, where the Ministry of Civil Defence is located, it was previously with the Department of Internal Affairs, well, that's gone across to the Department of Cabinet and Prime Minister and Cabinet, well beyond that. But there are a number of those recommendations that we are keeping an eye on and making sure we've implemented through our own corrective action planning.
So the other concern I had from this was the areas of improvement was the public education and also the public information management plan coordinated and given priority to. And it just seems to me like when you have things like possible events, that there's no one seems to take ownership. If you take high winds, for example, there's very little information that comes out. You see all the street signs fallen over. I mean, there may be work that's going on behind the scenes, but in terms of the public information, it seems very kind of limited. Is there anything that we can do as a council to improve? I mean, one of the ideas I've put forward previously is just one sort of red button that the mayor could push or someone could push, and it just sends a mass email or distribution to text to kind of give people a bit of a heads up.
We are evaluating some of the apps that are available at the moment. There's a company in Auckland called CloudM, and Auckland use that. They've got an app that they can just put. People got to log on to it. That's the difficulty with that. The Ministry of Civil Defence are currently investigating, and they've got a scoping out for interest at the moment for the development of a national alerting system, which is based around cell broadcast. So it's not individuals. So you can pick off a cell phone area, put the message out through that one. That can be controlled locally, but there's still a lot of work to be done on that one. Red Cross have got an app now as well, so we've got a bit of work going on right at the moment about what apps are out available that we could be using locally. So we haven't finished that, we've just scoped out that bit of work, so we're talking to CloudM, we're talking to Red Cross, and there are a number of other apps that are available. We don't want to get too confused on how many apps we use, but there is a gap, we fair to say, on getting that initial thing out to the community at the moment, alerting them something's coming on.
So
we did actually resolve during the long-term plan that if the civil defence section could find the money from its existing budget, that we would look at signing on to the CloudM
CloudM is one option.
And I've signed up to it as an app myself. The advantage of it is that it just will send messages through if there's a message to be sent through, but you do need people to log on to it. But in Auckland, they've had quite a good uptake, haven't they?
They have.
Yeah. So, and I think that with the amount of uptake of our, these smartphones, I think that it wouldn't be hard to get people to sign up to it if we were to go down this track. the advantage of that, the particular model that they've proposed, is that should civil defence bring in one for the whole country, that we can just simply change to that without any detriment.
What I was interested in is, at a regional level, is that we spent thousands of hours getting databases. So we had Stronger Christchurch, I think it was originally, then we had CDM, Public Info. We have all these huge databases of people that have already signed up to get regular information, but we don't seem to activate those if winds are coming to say, here's 5 things you can do to minimise the impact. We still, I mean, I can't see why we couldn't actually develop one thing there, but do we need to put more money on budget for that public information? Is that the kind of critical thing?
Well, I think I've said to the Mayor at the moment, if we were going to go for the Cloud N app, we would find that funding from our own budget. I think it's something like about 35,000 per annum. The Red Cross have come out one that's also got an alerting capability in it, and their one's free. So this is why we're sort of at the moment currently evaluating what's out there before we take that step and sign up with any particular one.
But what about just one thing for us as a city, just like a mass email? What's wrong with that idea? That doesn't cost us any money, is effectively free, and we can actually get this information out to people.
I'm not quite sure how you do a mass email, because people still need to register into there somehow as well, their email addresses. It could be quite a... Whatever system you want, we wouldn't want to be managing it itself. You'd really want the people subscribing to it, that they manage it. So, and that's effectively what the Cloud M app does.
Yeah.
So they subscribe into it, and then you can shoot out, once they're done, you just shoot out the message, say, high wind's coming up, or whatever the message is. So again, with texting, you're limited to 160 characters currently, but you still get a reasonable message out there. Or high winds coming up, refer to council's website for civil defence or something like that for further information.
Yeah. You have to be careful, Yanni, because my knowledge of this, and it's not as extensive as others, but if you use emails for things that are not relevant to what people need information for, so if you send information to people and they don't need it, they'll stop using it. And that's why having an app that's specific to, you know, a civil defence message is actually really vital. And I mean, I'm a big supporter of it, which is why we pushed it through the LTP, but have put pressure on Murray to find the money from his existing budget. So we're expecting a report back on that, hopefully sometime soon.
Yeah, next 2 or 3 months.
Yep.
And just the final question that I had was around that. Has there been any debrief around the flooding and any lessons learned from that?
There was a debrief around the flooding. You're talking again about public education messages and...
Or just anything in terms of the civil defence group response?
Well, this comes locally, so it comes back into the council for the local flooding as opposed to the regional group. I think we've included anything that would come. I think, again, it's just getting the messages out prior to and monitoring the weather forecast and getting those messages out to people. It is still a difficult one to do because there's no certainty as for rainfall, the impact. So, and then some of the mitigation measures that council doing with the land drainage recovery plan, hopefully will still mitigate some of those issues as well. But again, this we're trying to encourage I'll go back to the community emergency planning. So they know themselves what they can do and how they can support each other. And the more we can encourage the community to support each other, that effectively that means that's their resources there to help each other out with us supporting them in any way we can.
Yeah, Jimmy?
Okay, yeah, one question regarding to the 3.10, the area strength for improvement include especially goal 1, to increase community awareness, understanding, preparedness, and participation in CDM. I'm particularly concerned that 2 kind of categories. One is the training. The other one is the information, the provision. Training, a moment you are aware, after earthquake, quite a few workers in Christchurch come to Christchurch, and more the community, especially key communities, kind of multicultural community, etc. A moment whether we have a figure regarding to either community the training regarding CDEM or volunteer the training, how much percentage for those the multicultural group, whether they have this kind of training. Another one is regarding to the information, especially how to dealing with the earthquake issue, etc., natural disaster. whether except English have some other different version, fly, just one page, they give to them very clearly, how to do it, yes.
Yeah, we do work with the called communities on that, and there are the Get Ready, Get Through public education document is available in about 6 different languages. So anytime we're going out to any of those ethnic groups, we'll take the appropriate language one with them. They're available on the website as well, we tell people. So we try and get the same messages through about the preparedness, the hazards that people might face within Christchurch as well.
Okay, but how many kind of volunteer from the ethnic group partake of this training?
How many volunteer?
Yeah.
Our volunteering is targeting for people to come and help us out in the welfare centres within the community. I would say of the ethnic minorities, it would be, I'm guessing the figure here, it'd be less than 5%. It's very small, but we do try and engage with the ethnic groups and going out and talking to them, as opposed to asking them to volunteer. We're always welcoming volunteers, but we will try and target the ethnic groups and go out and talk to them specifically about the issues that they might be facing. If they wanted to volunteer, we would work with them as well.
Thank you.
Paul?
I was just going back to the database there, so you can be a bit careful with databases. There's laws around spamming and the purpose of why you're sending out emails and what you've actually subscribed to. So I think the self-log on to your app idea is actually certainly the better way to go. Yep. A lot of people have databases, but they don't use them properly.
And databases are hard to manage, to get out of date, so if we leave it to the people to subscribe themselves, it's self-managing.
Yep.
Great. So would someone like to move that the report be received? Jamie, seconded Paul. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thanks, Murray. Thanks very much.